You melted me down like a piece of gold. I've been bought and I've been sold, feeling not so special now.
Welcome to Danny on Everything. I am your host, Danny Bedrosian. With me as always is Carl Cerny, my fearless producer. I am honored to have Mr. Dave Barfield here filming us. Fantastic photographer who we've had the honor of working with in the past before, as well as on my live concert, which people have commented on as like their favorite, best looking thing of me on the internet. And happy to have Mr. Jose Serrano with me today. We're going to check out an interview with Jose. I want to get down to some quick news before we move on with that fantastic interview. I still got the comic book Sons of the Sun, but it is going down, setting like the sun. Only 3 maybe copies left of the first printing. There is a second printing that's coming out, and it's going to be a lot lower quality paper but less expensive, so that is available now for people who do want it, but there's a couple copies left of the first printing. And I'm really happy to say that the Patreon campaign with regards to the new album Dr. Music being a free gift for all that come on has been a huge success. Thank you to all my patrons for joining the Patreon and checking out the new album, and thanks for all the great feedback. And you can still get it if you join my Patreon. It's www.patreon.com/Danny Bedrosian. And all the people who join, whether it's the $20 tier and you get the whole album right away, the $10 tier and you get 3 songs every month, which is actually a really cool way of doing it because it breaks it up by era, or $3 tier where you get 1 song every month. Even once you've gotten everything from the new album, if you stay on as a patron, you get all my stuff. And I've got tons of albums for those of my collectors who are completists. This is a must-have for you. I'm noticing the people who have joined are definitely the completist type of collectors of my fan base, so that's really cool to see them come out and show the support. Everybody, thank you for showing your support. The new issue of Sons of the Sun, number 3, is coming out March or April of this year. We're really excited about it. It is by far the best one yet. And again, for those, my patrons are going to be able to get my new releases first. So it's kind of a cool way to do this. But with the album Dr. Music, the one that just came out, it's the only way to get it. So with the new comic, you'll be able to get it in other places too. All your other ways of getting it. Same with my albums and stuff. But with that new album, Dr. Music, there's only one way, and it's by joining my Patreon. So a really cool thing. I want to give some information on the shows coming up, sort of from February and March. P-Funk, we're going to be in New Orleans, February 24th. Just look it up online. I'm not sure 100% on the venue, but that was just added, February 24th in New Orleans. Also, my regular classical dinner music shows at the Chop House on the Bricks, February 18th and 19th, March 4th and 5th, March 18th and 19th. Also, I'll be doing separate pop, jazz, and R&B and funk music February 5th at the Over Under, and more dates at the Over Under coming up very soon. And February 12th at the Blue Tavern, my first time there since before the pandemic. Also, Secret Army dates are coming soon. We have an April tour in New England. We have a September date in Maryland, and we have another New England tour in December. So you guys are interested, comment, hit me up on my Instagram or any of those places, and contact me. I can give you information on those, but we'll probably be broadcasting those in the next episode of Danny on Everything. Again, Garmir Caramel, my newest album, still selling this. This has been named on 6 different podcast DJs, radio DJs, comedians, and influencers lists of best album of 2021. So this has been on those lists for 5 or 6 different kind of major DJs, which is really cool. Check that out. You can still get that. Hit my PayPal, info@DannyBedrosian.com. A Cash App is $Daniel Bedrosian. Venmo is Daniel Bedrosian, and $25, boom, you get the album, you get a free gift with every order. So that's still going on. I want you to check out that. And speaking of Garmir Caramel, our guest today, Jose Serrano, actually played bass on the live first performances of Garmir Caramel with my new reconstituted Somn Fierce trio alongside Jose and drummer Bakari Hines. Right. And we're going to play some of Jose's incredible improvisational playing with some of that music in a little piece from one of those shows coming right up next. And any thoughts about this stuff, Jose? Anything you want to touch on?
Man, you know, like, I'm following you on this stuff, you know. Like,
okay.
I love the whole album. It's great. Like, I was just jamming to it, like, the whole time in my car, you know.
Nice.
You know, you gotta live in the music, you know.
That's right.
And it's just like, it, you know, when I get up in there, I just stop thinking about her, and I just start hearing you and see how you're responding and stuff. And that's, you know, that's it.
And will you say some really nice things?
Well, thank
really
you.
do. Like, I look at it as speaking, you know, and it's like you say
Absolutely.
some really, like, just some fantastic passages in both of those concerts that we did. But I even especially liked the one we did at Junction at Monroe most recently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
agreed.
Was so sad when they recorded the first set, but they didn't record the second set.
Man,
and the second set, it was on fire.
Bruh, yeah.
But we're going to listen to a little bit of Jose Serrano right now with myself playing some of the Garmir Caramel music. Again, my name is Danny Bedrosian, and you are experiencing Danny on Everything. We're back. Danny on everything. I'm your host, Danny Bedrosian. We are honored to have a good friend of mine, fantastic musician, bassist, enrolled in the music program, the Jazz Masters program at Florida State University, FSU, and someone who I know as just a fantastic performer, improviser, player all around. Honored to say that he worked with my newest version of Somn Fierce to help support the Garmir Caramel album coming out towards the end of this year. Mr. Jose Serrano, thank you so much for coming, bro.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. We're sort of doing a series right now on different musicians, and you know, a large percentage of the listenership, viewership of the show are musicians and aspiring musicians. So I look at a lot of these interviews, the interview section, as really being inspiring, based solely on things I've heard from reaction to, you know, said interviews. So really glad to have a musician of your caliber on the show. So thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, no, of course, man. And that's you know, whenever I, you know, I'm in a rut, I'm kind of like in a situation where I'm like trying to get some inspiration and stuff. I always go and look for stuff like this, you know. Like, you know, I always listen to Christian McBride and guys like that, you know, just talk to like all this, you know, names that I don't even know about, you know. So it's just great to go and just talk out what you did. Yeah. You know, how you came up in music and stuff. It's just that really helps me, you know, get a little more, you know, inspiration to go and practice.
Yeah. And a busy guy, I have to say. You remind me a lot of myself in that way, that you are always working. But to bring it back to the base, where that comes from, that work ethic, let's go back to the very beginning. Let's tell everybody where you're from, where you got your start, and all of that.
Well, originally, you know, I was like born in the States by basically pure mistake.
Yeah.
Like my parents were doing their masters here. So I very much mistakenly was born American. But I was raised Venezuelan. I lived my whole life, you know, like since I was like year 2 until I was about like 16 years old. I lived in Caracas, Venezuela. And they have like a fantastic community of musicians in there. You get orchestras from like, you know, like very, very low income areas all the way to, you know, like what you hear all, you know, Duhamel and all the big names and the Simon Bolivar Orchestra. Yeah. You know, all that stuff. It's like a big community of artists that, you know, being from there, it's kind of different coming into some, you know, like what your background is. Sure. I grew up listening to a lot of classical music, being that my dad is a classical guitarist. But yeah, my upbringing was mainly in classical music in Venezuela.
Yeah. Talk about that. For those who are not aware, I guess, of the sort of cultural significance of Venezuelan music and art in general, could you paint a little bit of a picture for our viewers? A little bit. I know that could be a 10-hour tirade, but give like a little picture of maybe Venezuelan music and its influence on you.
Okay. Well, yeah. You know how to put that in like short, very concise words it's kind of hard, but to me is it's just what I was like born into. You know, I listened to Ensamble Burrufio since I was like a little kid, the Serenata Guayanesa and all this like just very popular Venezuelan, just folkloric music. Yeah. So, and that's always been embedded. You know, my mom loves to listen to that. My grandpa loved to just listen to that. Like all my family did. And that's what you listen to throughout the year. But then we have like a very special tradition, like in the Christmas seasons, which is what I really, really, really remember being like, wow, that's like some sort of music that I really, really like, which is the gaita.
Okay.
We have the Gaita Navideña, which is like something that we only do in December. And in December, we celebrate like basically throughout the month. At the beginning of the month, we make hallacas, which is like our typical, looks like a little Mexican tamale. You know?
Yep.
But it's filled differently and stuff. The dough is completely different. Anyways, I digress. In terms of music and stuff, all that food, all that seasoning and stuff, all that stuff goes together. You know, like it's kind of like when you talk about an hallaca, that thing has like a dough, and then el guiso, which is like the stew that's inside, has like all these kinds of meat. You know, in Caracas we do it with like hen, beef, and pork.
Okay. And
then apart from that, we have olives in there. You know, so it's just all these flavors coming together. And I think Venezuelan music is a lot like that because it has a lot of like Western influence just because of like, you know, we were like a Spanish colony.
Mm-hmm.
And so like what you hear in Venezuela's rhythm and stuff isn't particularly Western.
Sure.
So like there's this beautiful marriage between like some sort of like, you know, African diaspora and as well as like the Western, you know,
and indigenous, I'm sure.
And indigenous,
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
Indigenous from our regions, from the coasts and stuff. All the drums and stuff. It's a beautiful style of music that sadly, you know, throughout the years, Venezuela has become like a very, you know, hard place to live in. It's like ever since I can remember, I think like 2002, like I remember having to stay in my house for like weeks because like the government stopped.
Oh wow!
You know, and I was a kid and I didn't know what was happening.
Right.
But the government,
yeah,
like the government just stopped. You know, and
wow.
I was now like out of school and stuff, and I was just like, you know, met so many friends, like in my little community and stuff, and I went out, rode bicycles, played soccer, you know, football.
Right.
So ever since those years, since Chavez took, you know, control of that country, he basically just destroyed it. And, you know, that's just to put it in short words.
Yeah.
Because we could go forever.
Yeah, sure. No, yeah.
But it's like you said, you know, it's like the little Armenia of the Americas.
That's how I look at it, you know, because, you know, undaunted by its pressures, but always stuck in some kind of mired in some kind of problems that are usually externally influenced and usually very underreported in the West, even though this is the Western Hemisphere. The crisis that happened there was the worst humanitarian crisis in the Americas at that time, and for a very long time, and it wasn't really talked about much. You know? So, which is just another fascinating layer of why I wanted you to be here, to be able to talk about that a little bit. So that's definitely helpful, and we're probably going to get to that a little bit more as well in a bit. The upbringing with music, I also wanted to get to something you were talking about. The fusion of not just Venezuelan folk music, as it were, but the fusion of what you listened to as a child coming up in music.
Oh, absolutely.
The combination of, say, the classical music of the various eras, your Baroque and your classical and your Romantic and all those different modern, fused with the music of your nation,
exactly,
popular national music or folkloric music, as you were saying, folk music, brings forth a huge identity in your style, something that is living in you all through those formative years, but you get glimpses of it and start understanding it and all those things. That must have been a big part of what made you. And then now add jazz into that. Where did jazz come in for you as a youth? Were you doing it as early as you were doing the classical and the Venezuelan, or did it come later?
Yeah, the jazz thing, man. Excuse me. The jazz thing is a very kind of like a improvised thing, you know, as just the nature of it. The music.
Yeah.
I was looking for an orchestra to play with because like when I moved to the States, it was like 2011 when my dad was able to like pull us out of Venezuela, and I didn't really know about no music schools or anything around my area when I moved to Miami because there was just like absolutely no no one to talk to. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
New. Everything's new.
yeah, everything is new and stuff. So I had this one guidance counselor, Michelle DeFede. She like told me, you should just go to college. Don't worry about your senior year. Because also all my friends, like, we don't have like a sixth, like the last senior year in Venezuela, So like all my friends were graduating. And then she was like, yeah, no, you should go to college. So when I went to the school, they were like, all right, Broward College, that was what was available to me. Jason Hainsworth, who was director of the jazz studies at the time, I was just like basically walking through the halls just because I was like looking for an orchestra to play with. And somehow someone pointed me to Jason Hainsworth, who's now I believe in San Francisco. I mean, great saxophone player, and he really turned that program at Broward College around. When I was there, he was able to like bring a lot of artists and stuff. But it's a funny story because I showed up to his office completely unknowingly that I was gonna start doing anything with jazz. Like I grew up classical, so like jazz to me was like something that it wasn't really a concept. I only really heard kind of like a fusion, a Venezuelan fusion of it, and to me that sounded like just like Venezuelan music.
Sure.
So it really wasn't a concept to me until like this guy was like, hey man, play something, and I'm like, but like what? Like, you want me to play like my classical etudes, like the stuff that I know how to do? It's like, no man, I want you to play a beat. And I'm like, well, my dad's Brazilian, I have Brazilian like, in the blood, and we listened to a lot of bossa growing up. So I just literally just chilled on a C chord, played a bossa, and I think it was just like, he looked at the bass player, who was like the guy that went and took me to his office, John Dodorka, who was actually directing the school right now in Broward College. They were like, okay, so you have combo at 9 a.m. on Monday.
There you go.
That's how I got started in jazz. It was like I didn't know, but man, the moment I started playing it, it just something clicked. Like there's like this term in Venezuela, guataca.
Okay.
Which is like just hard to explain, but it is what kind of like what jazz is.
Okay.
It's kind of like being able to like freely improvise and kind of like just adapt to whatever rhythm you're playing, or whatever style you're playing, So they always said, I have guataca.
Right. It's like an improvisational feel.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah.
And
instinctual.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone actually pointed it out to me, I was like, oh, well, that's something you can actually like work on.
Yes.
And stuff. That's incredible, And then listening to like funkadelic, P-funk and stuff like that, you're like, oh, you can evolve also. It's great to like get into that jazz world, because coming from a Venezuelan standpoint, it's not like it isn't evolving. I mean, there's people like C Cuatro Trio that are doing incredible things with all kinds of music.
Yep.
Jorge Glem and everyone. But it's beautiful to see the marriage between like, so many cultures, and you cannot call it jazz, by agreeing to call it something.
Yeah.
But I think it is like a feeling, something that you just, you're able to do.
Yeah. Naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So you're marrying these sounds, you're accruing this knowledge over time. Broward College. What brought you up to FSU? Was that was later?
Yeah, that through Broward College, my professor went to FSU. He did his master's as well as I did, as I'm doing right now, at the school. So one of the artists that came down that year was Rodney Jordan, who was my teacher. Mm-hmm. And Professor Jordan just came down, and he was like, well, you should talk to me, And then the next year, Professor Anderson came down, and he was like, okay, you should talk to me. And then that was it.
Okay.
It was pretty quick. I was able to kind of like play with them both.
Yeah.
And Professor Jordan is one of those guys that really likes to play with bass players.
Right.
So it's just like we were able to like spend some time kind of like him showing me what he's all about, which is some bad stuff.
Right.
You know, so it was just like instant. The moment like they came down as artists that year, that was like, you know, I didn't even have to like really come up and audition or anything. They were like, yeah, let's do it.
Nice.
And you know, I didn't even look at another college. Like when I saw that Marcus Roberts wasn't there, who's like teaching us now.
Yeah.
Leon Peterson, like everyone in there, and the new addition that we had, David DeWeiler. I mean, it was just exciting to come up to a school that was like really kind of like digging into this music well. You know?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Two things I want to point out. The first, reiterating that when you have that something that makes it work, it reminds me, because coming out of classical too, I wanted to talk to you about this because so few of us from classical have found ourselves in legitimate positions in other genres, or more importantly, are able to cross the gap, travel back and forth.
Absolutely.
Without a visa, if you will, to those worlds, and legitimately be able to be in them if you wanted to just choose that one, but you don't want to just choose that one. You know what I mean? And giving it the respect a classical musician has,
absolutely,
but for that other thing is kind of not commonplace. I've spoken on it in the past, but that's what makes a good anomaly, a positive anomaly out of someone like you. And then that's a really special thing. Yep. Now, the second point I wanted to make as well was about how you also remind me of a younger version of myself, because you're also balancing education, getting your education, with being a very busy working musician. Now, this is the kind of stuff, again, my musician viewers, aspiring musician viewers, like, these are the things that they're like really kind of, I think, zoning in on, because it's like, how does one do that? And how much work do you envelop yourself in that's not associated with the work you have to do for school?
Yeah. Well, you know, just literally earlier today, we were talking about this in school. It's like, you know, like if you're just serious about something, you can find 20 minutes a day to invest time in it. That's really all you need, man. Yeah. Like, so like it really comes from like how much passion, how much do you really think this is worth to you? Because it's, you know, if you like, you know, PlayStation and you spend 5.5 hours on God of War, right, then good. That's something you're passionate about. You know, well, you should also be passionate about music like that. That's just, you know, and yeah. It's just, maybe that comes from like maybe being in a household that my dad was like, yeah, you gotta wake up at 6 a.m. and go clack 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 clack, so that you work. Regiment.
And more importantly, regiment specifically, because it's not just the practicing, it's also the fact that you're doing it even when you don't want to. Yeah. Right?
You gotta wake up and put that hat on. It is like, you know, it's not 20 minutes for me. It has to be more than 20 minutes. Yeah. But you know, it's whatever your situation is and whatever amount of time you have, just use it wisely. I mean, you know, dealing with like a lot of stuff personally this couple of months, like have not been able to like shed, you know, practice as much as I want to. And now like I'm literally having to play this 4 hits with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. And like, I'm literally not feeling my best because of the fact that I'm not being able to put my literal hour a day, you know. Right. It's that important to me to have my practice every day. And like right now I'm in like, you know, in a state where I have to like go to South Florida all the time and then come back to Tallahassee, and then I have a gig, and then I have another gig, and then I have to do the school work and then teach like 6 students, whatever, you know.
And teaching too, right?
You know, so it becomes like a little, you know, overwhelming. But the moment you settle down and put everything into a schedule and give yourself like, be realistic with yourself, and like, this is actually the amount of time that I have to practice, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna transcribe this couple of records, and you know, just be realistic with yourself. Like, this is the amount of stuff that I can do. Yeah. And you get it done every day. Yeah. You know, and slowly, even though it looks like nothing is getting done, something is getting done.
Yeah. During the most quarantine parts of COVID, I had the most fun practicing what I wanted to, getting to the stuff I felt I needed to as a musician, just in my head, having nothing to do with the work. Because when you're not in that unprecedented isolation, it is all the work. And the work is music too, 100%. But you have, like, I'll do like a day. If I have 2 gigs this week, I'm only going to dedicate 1 day of my practicing to the stuff I want to practice. All the other days are going to be dedicated to whatever those, and it'd still be the same genre. Say it'd be classical, you know. But these tunes that you have to play at this place, as opposed to what you feel like working on, getting better on, right? So like it's about balancing those things. Yeah. You have to be selfish in places and unselfish in others.
Right.
And,
absolutely.
Right. And that balance is a huge part of it, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go on.
Oh no, it's as important like in practice as it is like how you approach music. You know, there's some stuff in music that you might not particularly like. You have to acknowledge that it's there. Right. You know, like if you play anything today and you don't like blues, right? It's like you know where it came from? No. Okay, well, fine. You know, and that to me is a problem. You know, like and if you look at practice like that as well, then like you get a lot done because it's like a job. You know, like man, you don't want to go and get this customer that's gonna be like a complete pain in the, you know. Right. But man, you gotta go and do it, and you gotta go and learn it, and you gotta go and, you know, get like $550 sale.
If you feel it's important, but at the end of the day, it's all important. When it comes down to being what is considered a working musician. Yeah. Because at one point people used to say, oh, only if you play this instrument, you need to know all the genres. But at this point, you need to really know as much genre-wise as you possibly, no matter what the instrument. Absolutely. And you know, that has, you know, become much more universal. Yeah.
I every single, you know, like I just recommend doing it, you know, like I try, and, you know, it's been difficult this month, but I teach at Tallahassee Youth Orchestras. And that's my Sundays, and that's an orchestra, you know. So I keep my classical stuff like up to date. You know, I have to teach this, right? And if I didn't know how to do it, I would feel completely.
How do you do that like as a teacher? Yeah, it's insane.
You can't.
Yeah, you can't do that. That's also impetus for more study, isn't it? Like all of those things. Now, contemporaneously speaking, tell the people about some of the groups you're working with. If that's okay. Can you about who you're working with currently?
Yeah, well, currently, you know, I'm kind of up and down, you know, out of school. In school and out of school. In school, like, we have this, like, I'm at the honors combo that kind of just formed this year. Marcus Roberts is, like, heading that. And then I'm playing with Royce Lovett, you know, whenever Royce actually is able to get like a band on stage. Like I mean, I love the guy. We're really trying to push his music out because, man, like it's great. Royce Lovett. I think he's about to drop something really quick that we just recorded. Nice. Not long ago. So I'm working with that. I'm also just you know, in Tallahassee. If you kind of go out to a bar, you might just catch me there.
So you're playing with a bunch of groups though in Tallahassee though. You're playing with a bunch of groups, right?
Yeah, I could just continuously sub and stuff and do stuff like that so that, you know, I can.
And then what about the Glenn Miller Orchestra? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just got the call just this week. Like literally, we needed a sub, and, you know, I obviously was gonna say yes to the Glenn Miller Orchestra. So, and it's been like a ridiculously good time with them. Like we played at the Naval Air Museum in Pensacola, but they have, like, you know, the Blue Angels kind of like just like pointing at the stage. It's crazy. I mean, and we played. It's been like one of the best gigs experiences I've had in my life. But yeah, I'm just basically subbing in for this like 4 dates and stuff.
That's great.
You know. And man, it teaches you a lot. That like this like quote unquote jazz. This is like pop music. You have to play like very particular like bass lines to it. If not, it sounds so like
it's canonized at this point. Oh, the older the form, the more canonization usually there is. I mean, that's pretty much the case. And so at this point, that era of jazz has been around for quite a long time. You know what I mean? So, but moving forward, Jose, it's been so amazing. We're going to also hopefully play something. If you have some music or anything you want to play on the show,
Yeah.
we're going to play something for you. So everybody check out Jose Serrano. Check out his music. Jose, thanks so much for coming to Danny on Everything.
Yes, sir.
And you have been experiencing, watching, listening to Danny on Everything. Well, another great episode of Danny on Everything. I'm really, really happy to be able to continue bringing content to you guys. Remember, you can check out the Danny on Everything YouTube page. We got DannyOnEverything.com with the archive of all the podcasts. And you can check us out on Moose Magnificat Radio, moosemagnificat.com, or you can download the Moose app. And the new episodes of Danny on Everything air on the Moose app and on Moose Magnificat Radio the first 2 Fridays of every month and the first 2 Sundays of every month. The Fridays are at 5:30 p.m. and the Sundays are at 1 p.m. So I hope you guys check that out. Again, join my Patreon. Check out this great stuff. I want to thank Jose Serrano, Dave Barfield, Carl Cerny, all the people at Moose, and you guys for tuning in. So thanks again. I'm Danny Bedrosian. You have been watching, listening to, experiencing Danny on Everything.
You're going sweetie like a bird. You're going sweetie like a bird.